Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. I know, new hair, new surround. You still have my lovely buffalo right there. Yes. My other pictures are yes. Anywho, um, I've been taking some time for myself to just recoup because concussion is no joke. So, um, today's kind of gonna be a very different style video featuring my cat mug. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just having some coffee. So I kind of wanted to like touch up, touch base because there's been a lot of true crime things that have come out. Also, apologies for any other like small human background noise. Yes, I have a family. Let me rephrase that. The last victim that was unidentified of the Happy Face Killer. So, if you don't know who the Happy Face Killer is, I covered him on my channel. I'll link that video in a card above. It's about Keith Jesperson. Keith Jesperson, he was arrested in 1995. Sorry, in 1996, he told police that he had killed a woman by the name of either Suzanne or Suzette in August of 94, and that her body was off of an exit off of the I-10 in Florida. So this update came actually on Tuesday, and that body has been identified, and that's of Suzanne Kjellenberg. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. It's Kjellenberg. And she was discovered, obviously, off of the I-10 in September of 1994 by a inmate working crew. I'm pretty sure it was like the working crew that pick up stuff off the side of the road. That's who it was. So she was 34 around the time of her death, and she was the last unknown woman connected to Keith Jesperson. So I thought that was something very intriguing that I could just discuss a little bit because it's not every day that an unidentified murder victim of such a notorious serial killer is identified. So basically what happened is Keith Jesperson met her at a truck stop and he picked her up. Keith Jesperson used to be a truck driver. So picking up people at truck stops was like in his norm. So he picked her up. She was headed to Lake Tahoe and she needed a ride. And he would basically say that he didn't know exactly where he was going and they just kept driving. And he ended up driving to Cairo, Georgia. They ended up sharing a meal together along the way, and when they made it to Cairo and eventually started like driving back to Florida, he obviously you have to stop at security like stops and like rest stops for your truck and stuff like that. He said when he parked at a rest stop, he went back to check on her. She was sitting in like the lounge area. Lounge is like the back cab of his truck. And when he sat next to her, she started like freaking out, screaming. And then this is all him. He started like freaking out because there was a security guard that was next to him, and he just like, no. So he started telling her to shut up, and the more he told her to do that, the more she like was losing her mind, and he just killed her. And truck drivers aren't supposed to have people in their trucks, especially if they're stopped, and they're not supposed to. It's a lot of them. It can be against like their contracts and stuff with whoever they're employed by. So they have to be very, very careful with stuff like that. So what he did is he ended up securing her with zip ties like around her neck, and he ended up dumping her. Not really nice, but thankfully we're in the land of genetic and forensic genealogy, and what they did is they took her remains, sent it to Othram, who is amazing. Othram is a genetics lab in Texas that has helped many cases with unidentifieds become identified. So they ended up extracting the DNA, and they were able to identify this Jane Doe as Suzanne, which is great because, I mean, like I said, not every day this happens. And Keith Jesperson has officially been charged with her murder her her identification became public. So that is really cool to see, because he is a cross country spree killer, and being able to, finally do the right thing when it comes to an unidentified is amazing. Amazing. So, hold on. There was another one I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah. So there was remains that were found in the desert. Suzanne Morphew. If you don't know who Suzanne Morphew is, Suzanne Morphew went missing in May 10th of 2010, and she's been missing since, or reported missing since then. She went missing about 45 miles south of where she lived in Maysville, Colorado, and this was she was found that far away from her home, and it's in the Saguache County area of Colorado. So it's really strange. Like her body, her remains were so well preserved, and they have been able to determine a cause of death. Now, let me kind of backtrack. So because of the temperature, they believe that the temperature and how hot the desert conditions are where she was, that's what helped preserve her bones and help preserve other evidence that could be around her, that could be connected to her death. Also, her skeleton was intact, and because of how preserved her bones are, it would make it easier for them to identify if there's any markings on her skeleton to determine a cause of death, which is really cool. And not every case is like that. Not every case is indicative or has those markings indicative with what killed them. There's a lot of John and Jane Does where we don't know what happened to them. Even though we have their skeletons, we can't read a skeleton that doesn't have any tangible evidence of a homicide. And in this case, Morphew, her death is a homicide. They believe, because of how her body was found in a shallow grave, that this is homicide and that strangulation is a part of her death, which is struggling. Now, also when I still have bouts of concuss, but so also when the county coroner for Saguache was performing x-rays on her body, they found evidence of what seemed to be like a bullet, so potentially a gunshot wound. And when they were examining the crime scene of where her body was, they attempted to find anything that would kind of bolster up that theory, if you will. They were trying to find bullets, they were trying to find cigarette butts or bottle caps that may have DNA on it, and things like that. And they think that if she was wearing any clothes at the time of her death, that there probably is gunshot residue, but they did not find any clothing, because those would help indicate that it indeed was a gunshot wound, and it could show potential signs of a struggle as well. So her body, obviously, they're still doing testing. They have to wait for toxicology. Toxicology and some of the other tests is what takes weeks to months. But it's been reported that about 90% of her autopsy report has been released. And the best part and worst part about this is that they were actually searching for another woman when they discovered her remains. So they were looking for Edna Quintana in the area when they came across Suzanne Morphew's remains. And it's just ironic where you're trying to find somebody, but you end up finding somebody else. And also in this area, 5 other people have disappeared or have been found dead in this same area where her remains were found, which is cool and sad all at the same time. There is a man's remains that were found on July 26th. There was another unidentified person that was their remains were located just this past weekend. Then there's Crystal Reisinger. Then there's Edna Quintana, and then obviously Suzanne Morphew. So there's some of them have been found dead, some are still missing, and it's really weird because it's the same area. So, I mean, Is there something underlying about this? Is there something we don't know? And where her body was, from what I've read, is in a very difficult area to even like get to. So clearly she was put there. I mainly am just extremely happy that we have identified her, and that her family has peace from this, because not everybody, not everybody that has lost family members, um, will get this happy ending. And it's one of those things where you're just like, it puts a lot of things into perspective, because it's not everything that you think of. It's not everything that it's a blessing that this family got a happy ending, because not everybody does. Yeah. So her husband Barry was initially charged with her murder, and I mean he's accused of killing his wife, and he was charged with her murder and tampering with physical evidence back in 2021, when it was a presumed death, and with her disappearance. They ended up dropping the charges against him because they needed more time in order to find her. Now that they've found her, because he's already been arrested and they've already tapped his phone, there's GPS on his cars, like they've posted cameras near his home just to monitor him. I don't know what will come of this, and it's kind of, a lot of people are just like reaccusing him. 9 times out of 10, everybody thinks it's a spouse, but sometimes we just don't know, especially with like what happened around this. So she went on a bike ride. We know that. That's the basis. Or she left home to go on a bike ride. Her bike was found in a ravine, and that was along the County Road 225 and Highway 50, which is in Chaffee County. So that's actually near her home, and that was found the same day in which she was reported missing back in 2020. And I mean, she was found on September 22nd of this year. And I mean, she was reported missing in May. So basically during lockdown, when everybody's locked down, she went missing. So it's one of those things where you're like, oh my goodness, what is going on? But I'm happy that they have some answers for her, for basically for her murder and things like that. Hopefully the family of Edna Quintana will get some answers, because it's you always want a happy ending for everybody, or every person's that could be involved in things, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes you want everybody to have a happy ending. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about is another serial killer. I know this one's all over the place. I hope you enjoy. So Dennis Rader, he's come back into the spotlight, and which is funny because he has a do not contact with media, and he did that on purpose because he didn't want anybody to talk to him. Nothing. So he is suspected in multiple different cold cases. One of them is 16-year-old Pawhuska native Cynthia Kinney, and Cynthia Kinney went missing from her aunt and uncle's like laundromat or dry cleaner in 1976. And there's the reason why he's a potential the reason why he is suspected in this murder is because he has a journal entry, which is part of his like tokens and stuff that his daughter found, and turned over to the police. There's a journal entry that talks about a girl or lady, and it's called the Bad Wash Day, or planned to call the Bad Wash Day, and he victimized this girl in a laundromat. So all of these sketches and things were recovered after he was arrested in 2005. And the picture in particular they're talking about is a girl in a green dress, blonde hair. She's sitting on a bale of hay, and she is hogtied with a gag in her mouth, and she has rope around her legs. And BTK, which is Dennis Rader's title, basically, bind, torture, and kill. He had a fascination with anything with barns, and this girl in the green dress, they believe, is Kinney. They believe it's Cynthia Kinney. And with investigators putting out stuff like this, they really hope that there is new leads that come from this. And they really hope that they would get definitive answers when it comes to this. Now, so there's still, currently at this time, there is still 5 missing women between 1974, which is his first kill, and 2005. So he was arrested on February 25th of 2005. So there's 5 missing women cases in Kansas in between his span of crimes. Well, first crime and then caught, that are still unsolved. And they believe that he is a part of it. Now it's like, it could be possible that the girl in the green dress is actually Carol Solins. Now, Carol Solins is also in the on the Charlie Project. I'll put the link down below. It could be that girl in the green dress picture could either be Kinney or Solins. And Carol Solins, she was an exotic dancer. She was last seen outside of Galena Club, and she was speaking to a man with a pickup truck, and the pickup truck had a camper shell on the back. And her body's never been found. She was only 18 at the time of her death, and she was known to be wearing a green shirt-like dress, which is very similar to that drawing. Again, I am unsure of which girl that drawing could be. It could be Solins or it could be Kinney. There is also another picture with a girl in that looks like a shirt-style dress, and again, it's in a barn. She has a noose around her neck. She's hogtied, and she has a I keep wanting to call it a muzzle, but it's not. A gag. She's got a gag in her mouth. But this dress is red. So in my mind, I think that the girl with the green dress, the blonde one, which Solins had blonde hair, and that this one, the girl with the red dress, is actually Kinney, because Kinney had brown hair. She was brunette. Basically, I just wanted to talk about that update. Now, Dennis Rader he only confessed to about 10 murders after he was arrested, and all of these murders happened within Park City, Kansas. He was really like a hometown dude. He has tons of drawings that they found. There was tons of sketches and tons of like different notes and stuff that he has, and drawings of silos, and he had lists. And there's another case that he potentially could have committed as well, which is a recently identified case. All right, so he is also the prime suspect in the death of Shaa Garber. Shaa Garber was found in McDonald County, Missouri, back in December of 1990. And yeah, he's been the prime suspect for a while. And since her identification and things like that, Garber's identification, they've reopened these investigations in hopes of being able to solve them and thus charging him with murder. So that's been interesting and intriguing for some true crime news. Let's see if there's anything else that has spawned because of it. So the other thing that's been out in the news today is that there is going to be a show on ID that comes out on November 5th, which is The Lost Women of Highway 20, which is actually something I was just reading about, which is ironic. So there was a string of disappearances on Highway 20 in between the 70s and the 90s. And there's one disappearance in particular that led to unveiling the series of missing females. So the Kickstarter of this was the disappearance of Rashonda Pickle, who was 13, and she went missing from her home in Sweet Home, Oregon in 1990. So her disappearance kind of destroyed the community because it's so small and tight knit, and this is what triggered the investigation into this series of these females that were vanished, and a lot of them were murdered or sexually assaulted along US Highway 20. So these women include Kay Turner, obviously Rashonda Pickle, Melissa Sanders, and Sheila Swanson. And then there's one survivor. Her name is Marlene Gabrielson. And then this is going to be apparently a 3-part series that is going to be on ID, which is Investigation Discovery, and it's literally called Lost Women of Highway 20. I'll put a link for it down below in my description box. So that, my friends, is today's lovely true crime recap. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one, whatever that is. Bye!